There was a man who spent the first 26 years of his life completely broke. He dropped out of high school. He drifted from one dead-end job to another. He owed money he couldn't repay. He woke up every morning with the weight of failure sitting on his chest like a stone. By every measure society uses to judge a man, he had already lost. Then one night, someone handed him a copy of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. He didn't just read it. He studied it. He read it over and over until the words stopped being words and started becoming something else, something alive inside him. And in less than a year, his income went from $4,000 a year to $175,000. Then to over $1 million. Not because the economy changed. Not because he got lucky. Not because he found the right opportunity. But because something inside his mind fundamentally shifted. That man was Bob Proctor. He didn't stop there. He spent the next 6 decades obsessively reverse engineering what had happened to him. He sat at the feet of Earl Nightingale. He studied the work of Dr. Thurman Fleet, Raymond Hollowell, and Thomas Troward. He traveled the world, stood on stages in front of millions of people, and asked one question over and over. Why do some people attract abundance effortlessly, while others struggle their entire lives without ever breaking through? The answer he found was not in the economy. It was not in education, timing, or talent. The answer was in the mind, specifically, in a precise mental code that governs every result a human being will ever produce in their lifetime. Today, you are going to learn that code. Welcome to the teachings of Bob Proctor. If you have spent any time studying the principles that Bob Proctor dedicated his life to, you already know that he was not a man who dealt in vague inspiration. He did not believe in feel-good platitudes or surface-level motivation. He believed in laws, immutable, invisible, and extraordinarily precise laws that govern the universe and everything in it, including you. One of the most powerful ideas Bob returned to again and again, across his books, his seminars, his private coaching programs, was what he called the mental architecture of abundance. He understood that prosperity is not something that happens to a person. It is something that is built, thought by thought, image by image, belief by belief, in the laboratory of the human mind. Most people approach money and success from the outside in. They try to change their circumstances without ever touching the internal conditions that created those circumstances. They update their resume. They switch jobs. They read financial books and try new strategies. And yet the same results keep appearing year after year because the same mental patterns keep generating them. Bob Proctor taught something radically different. He taught that the mind operates according to a code, a set of deeply embedded instructions that runs like software beneath conscious awareness. This code determines what you notice and what you ignore. It determines how much money flows into your life and how much of it you keep. It determines the boldness of your goals, the persistence of your effort, and the magnitude of your results. The extraordinary news, and Bob was always clear about this, is that this code can be rewritten. It does not matter how old you are. It does not matter how many times you have failed before. The moment you understand how the code works and apply the principles that govern it, everything begins to change. In this video, we are going to walk through 7 essential chapters of Bob Proctor's mental code of abundance. Each one represents a key that Bob spent decades refining and teaching. Take notes. Sit with these ideas. Let them move through you more than once. Because the understanding you gain today has the power to alter the entire trajectory of your life. Let's begin. Bob Proctor believed that one word explained almost everything about why people stay stuck, and that word was paradigm. A paradigm is a multitude of habits fixed in your subconscious mind. It is the mental programming that was installed in you long before you were old enough to evaluate whether it was serving you or slowly destroying your potential. From the moment you were born, your environment began writing code into your subconscious. The beliefs your parents had about money, the attitudes of the community you grew up in, the limitations that were spoken over you as a child, all of it was recorded, cataloged, and stored in the most powerful part of your mental architecture. Here is the critical insight Bob never tired of teaching. Your paradigm controls your behavior. And your behavior produces your results. This means that if you want different results in your life, you cannot simply try harder using the same mental programs. You must address the program itself. Think of it this way. Imagine a highly sophisticated thermostat installed in a house, set permanently to 68 degrees. You can open all the windows. You can fan the room. You can bring in space heaters. But the moment you stop, the temperature returns to exactly 68. Your paradigm works precisely this way with money, relationships, and success. Most people are not aware of their paradigm. They experience its effects, the repeated patterns, the glass ceilings, the invisible resistance that appears just as they begin to make progress, but they do not see the source. Bob called this living inside the paradigm without understanding it. Point one of Bob's most powerful teachings was that a paradigm can only be changed in two ways: through repetition of new information, or through an emotional impact so strong it rewrites the pattern instantly. Both methods work. But for most people, disciplined repetition is the more reliable and accessible path. The first step in changing your paradigm is simply becoming aware of it. Begin to observe your automatic thoughts around money. Notice the stories that arise when you imagine having more. Notice the hesitations, the doubts, the invisible rules you follow about what is possible for someone like you. These are not truths. They are programs. And programs, by definition, can be rewritten. This was the foundation of Bob Proctor's entire life work, the unwavering conviction that the human mind is not a prison but a workshop, and that every person has the ability to reconstruct their inner architecture. Bob often told his audiences, "If you can hold it in your head, you can hold it in your hand." That statement is not poetry. It is a precise description of how creation works at the level of mind. What you can consistently hold as a mental image, charged with genuine feeling, your paradigm will eventually normalize, and what your paradigm normalizes, your behavior will produce. Chapter 1 of the Mental Code of Abundance begins here. Understand your paradigm, observe its patterns without judgment, and commit to the process of changing it. Everything else in this video depends on this foundation. Bob Proctor spent decades studying the work of Dr. Thurman Fleet, the man who first created a visual representation of the mind that Bob would go on to teach to millions. He called it the stick person, a simple but extraordinarily powerful diagram that maps how the human mind receives, processes, and acts on information. The mind, as Bob taught it, has two distinct regions. The conscious mind is the thinking mind, the part of you reading and processing these words right now. It has the remarkable ability to choose. It can accept or reject any idea. It is your faculty of reason, imagination, perception, and will. The subconscious mind is something else entirely. It does not think. It does not evaluate. It does not choose. It simply accepts whatever the conscious mind repeatedly impresses upon it, and then executes those instructions with perfect, mechanical consistency, whether those instructions serve you or destroy you. This distinction is everything. It explains why willpower alone never works for lasting change. Willpower is a conscious mind tool. But the patterns that govern your life, your habits, your emotional reactions, your financial set point, are stored in the subconscious. You cannot overpower the subconscious with the conscious. You must work with it, not against it. The key to abundance, Bob taught, is learning to use your conscious mind to deliberately and repeatedly feed the subconscious mind with new images, new ideas, and new beliefs. This is not wishful thinking. It is a precise and learnable mental technology. Every thought you think drops like a seed into the fertile soil of the subconscious. Repeated thoughts become beliefs. Beliefs become behaviors. Behaviors become results. And results eventually harden into what people call reality. But that reality began as a thought, which means a different reality can begin with a different thought. Bob taught that most people accidentally program their subconscious with fear, limitation, and lack. Not because they are foolish, but because no one ever taught them how the mind works. They absorbed the world's dominant vibration, which is one of scarcity, and they replay those frequencies without realizing they have a choice. The practice Bob prescribed was specific. He called it living in the end. Before a desired result exists in the physical world, you must first create it vividly and emotionally in the theater of your mind. You must see yourself already in possession of the abundance you desire, not as fantasy, but as a disciplined mental exercise practiced daily with full emotional commitment. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. This is not metaphor. This is a neurological and psychological fact that modern science has confirmed. When you consistently imagine a result with emotion, the subconscious mind begins organizing your behavior, your words, your choices, your actions, to match that internal image. Point two minds. One goal. The mental code of abundance requires that you make your conscious and subconscious minds allies rather than adversaries. When they are aligned around a clear, emotionally charged vision, nothing in the external world can prevent its manifestation. Bob Proctor was deeply influenced by the law that Thomas Troward called the law of vibration, the understanding that everything in the universe, at its most fundamental level, is energy in motion. This was not mysticism to Bob. It was science. And he built an entire approach to prosperity on its implications. Every thought you think produces a vibration. That vibration is not invisible in any meaningful sense. It is expressed in your posture, your tone of voice, your emotional state, your level of expectation, and the subtle energy you carry into every room, conversation, and opportunity. The law of attraction, which Bob popularized through his appearance in The Secret, is a direct consequence of the law of vibration. Like frequencies attract like frequencies. This means that what you are experiencing in your outer life is a precise reflection of what you are broadcasting from your inner world. Most people find this idea uncomfortable because it implies responsibility. If your circumstances are a reflection of your vibration, then you cannot blame the economy, your upbringing, or other people for your results. You must look inward. And looking inward, with courage and honesty, is where transformation begins. Bob taught that prosperity has a frequency. It is not vague. When you are genuinely operating on the frequency of abundance, not pretending, not wishing, but truly feeling the certainty that abundance is your natural state, the universe begins moving circumstances, people, and opportunities into alignment with that signal. The challenge for most people is that they try to think about abundance while simultaneously feeling lack. They affirm wealth while emotionally broadcasting poverty. The mind is confused, the signal is mixed, and the results are inconsistent. Bob called this the gap between intellectual understanding and emotional embodiment. To shift your vibration permanently, Bob recommended a practice he called acting as if. Not in a delusional sense, but in a deliberate, psychological one. Begin to make decisions as the person you are becoming, not as the person you have been. Carry yourself with the confidence and expectancy of someone who knows that abundance is inevitable. Gratitude was one of Bob's most prescribed tools for elevating vibration. When you are genuinely grateful, not for what you hope to have, but for what you already have, your emotional frequency rises. A higher emotional frequency is a more powerful signal, and a more powerful signal attracts more of what it corresponds to. Bob often quoted Wallace Wattles, who wrote that thinking in a certain way is the foundation of all prosperity. That certain way is not positive thinking in the conventional sense. It is a disciplined commitment to holding the mental and emotional equivalent of what you desire, long before physical evidence appears. The frequency of prosperity is available to you right now. It does not require external permission or favorable circumstances. It requires only that you understand what you are broadcasting and make the courageous decision to change the station. One of the most distinctive and powerful teachings in all of Bob Proctor's body of work was his framework of A, B, and C goals. This framework cut through the confusion most people have about why their goals never seem to produce real breakthroughs, and replaced that confusion with radical clarity. And a goal, Bob explained, is something you already know how to do. It is familiar, comfortable, incremental. There is nothing wrong with the goals, but they will never change your life, because they do not require you to change. They fit neatly inside the boundaries of your existing paradigm. A B goal is something you think you can do. It is slightly beyond your current reality, perhaps a stretch, but you can map the route from here to there with your existing knowledge. B goals feel ambitious until you realize that they, too, are limited by what your current mind is willing to imagine. Then there is the C goal. And this is where Bob's teaching becomes genuinely transformative. A C goal is something you want so badly you can barely speak it aloud. It is the vision that makes your heart race and your logical mind immediately begin generating objections. It is what Bob called the goal that scares you. The reason C goals are so powerful is precisely because you do not know how to achieve them. You cannot see the path. You cannot map the route. And that is not a problem, that is the point. The moment you commit to a C goal, your mind is forced to operate at a higher level. New ideas emerge. You notice things you previously overlooked. Your entire mental and perceptual system reorganizes around the new objective. Bob used to say that you do not set a goal and then figure out how. You set the goal, commit to it fully, and the how reveals itself progressively. This is not naive. It is an accurate description of how the creative process works when you engage it at the level of genuine commitment rather than cautious experimentation. The goal must be written. Bob was insistent on this. A goal that lives only in your head remains a wish. When you write it down in clear, specific language, "I am so happy and grateful now that," it begins to shift from fantasy to intention. And intention, properly charged with emotion, is a creative force of extraordinary power. Read your goal every day, morning and night. Not as a ritual, but as a deliberate act of impressing that image on your subconscious mind. Let the feeling of its accomplishment become familiar. Let your nervous system begin to register it not as something distant and impossible, but as something on its way. People around you may not understand your C goal. They may express concern, skepticism, or even ridicule. Bob considered this not a warning sign, but a confirmation. If everyone immediately understood and approved of your goal, it was not big enough. Real C goals live outside the consensus reality of your current environment. Choose a goal today that genuinely terrifies you with its magnitude. Commit to it before you know how. Write it down. Read it every day. And watch as your mind, the most sophisticated creative instrument in the known universe, begins building the bridge. Bob Proctor believed that the human imagination was the single most powerful creative faculty available to any person on Earth. Not talent. Not education. Not circumstances. Imagination. Specifically, the ability to construct a vivid, detailed, emotionally real mental image of a desired result, and to hold that image with disciplined consistency. He often referenced Albert Einstein, who said that imagination is more important than knowledge. Bob took this literally. Knowledge tells you what already exists. Imagination reaches toward what does not yet exist, and then sets the forces of mind, energy, and behavior in motion to bring it into being. Most people use their imagination unconsciously and destructively. They vividly imagine the worst-case scenario. They replay past failures with high emotional intensity. They construct detailed mental movies of what could go wrong. And then they wonder why their life keeps delivering more of the same. Their imagination is working perfectly, but in the wrong direction. The practice Bob prescribed was to become a deliberate architect of your mental imagery. Instead of allowing the imagination to run unsupervised through the territory of fear, you consciously design the images you dwell in. You build the life you want in your mind first, with specificity, emotion, and regularity. This practice has a name in the world of high performance: visualization. But Bob's approach went beyond the passive watching of mental movies. He taught a form of active, first-person, emotionally saturated imagination, where you do not watch yourself succeeding from a distance, but feel, in the present tense, exactly what it would be like to already possess your desired result. The body responds to vivid imagination as though the imagined experience is real. Your heart rate changes. Your neurochemistry shifts. The same neural pathways activate that would activate in the actual experience. Over time, this consistent inner experience becomes the new normal, the new set point that your subconscious mind works to replicate in your outer world. Bob often recommended spending at least 15 to 30 minutes each day in disciplined imaginative work. Not casual daydreaming, deliberate, emotionally engaged mental construction. This is not wasted time. It is the most important investment you will ever make, because it is an investment in the program that generates all other results. The imagination is also the tool through which new ideas arrive. When you hold a clearly defined goal in your mind with regularity, your creative faculties begin presenting you with insight, strategy, and inspiration that were invisible before. Bob called these hunches, and he trusted them absolutely, because he understood they were the subconscious mind delivering solutions to a clearly stated problem. The great men and women of history, the builders, the artists, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, were not simply lucky or talented. They were, above all else, powerful Imagineers. They held visions so vivid and so persistent that the physical world eventually bent to accommodate them. This is not magic. It is the mental code of abundance in full operation. You were born with an imagination of unlimited power. The question is not whether you have it. The question is whether you are using it deliberately, or surrendering it to the default programming of fear, habit, and circumstance. Starting today, choose deliberately. Bob Proctor taught that the word decide comes from the Latin decidere, meaning to cut off. A real decision is not a preference or a hope. It is an act of mental surgery that eliminates all alternative outcomes from your psychological field. When you truly decide, The retreat option disappears, and that disappearance is where your power begins. Most people do not decide. They dabble. They try. They explore. They see how it goes. And then, when inevitable challenges arise, as they always do, they interpret those challenges as evidence that the goal was unrealistic, rather than recognizing them as the natural terrain that every worthwhile achievement requires you to cross. The difference between people who achieve extraordinary results and people who remain perpetually on the verge of breakthrough is rarely talent, intelligence, or opportunity. It is almost always the quality and depth of their commitment. The person who has truly decided will find a way. The person who is still evaluating will find an excuse. Bob used to tell the story of a general who, upon landing his troops on enemy shores, ordered the ships burned. His army was not going back. There was no plan B. The only path was forward, and that total commitment produced a level of focus, creativity, and resourcefulness that a half-committed army never could. Decision creates the fire. Commitment keeps it burning. Financial abundance, specifically, requires a decision about your worth. Bob taught that most people have never made a decision about how much money they intend to earn. They have preferences and fantasies, but not decisions. A real financial decision is specific, written, and treated as a done deal, not a hope to be confirmed by circumstances, but a declaration to be confirmed by action. The decision must also be made independent of how it will happen. This is the part most people resist. The logical mind demands to see the path before it commits to the destination. But this is precisely backward. Commitment to the destination is what causes the path to reveal itself. You do not earn your way to abundance by following visible steps. You commit, and the steps appear. Bob also drew an important distinction between being interested and being committed. Interested people pursue their goals when conditions are comfortable. Committed people pursue their goals unconditionally. Interest is subject to moods, circumstances, and the opinions of others. Commitment is subject to none of these things. Once a real decision is made, the next critical step is to take immediate, imperfect action. Not to wait until you feel ready. Not to wait until the plan is perfect. Action in the direction of a committed decision signals to the universe that you are serious, and the universe, Bob taught, responds to seriousness with resources. Review your decision daily. Reinforce it. Speak it. Write it. Let it become the dominant mental object in your psychological field. Because what dominates your mind dominates your behavior. And what dominates your behavior eventually dominates your results. There is one decision available to you right now that has the power to change everything. Not a small hedged, let's see how it goes, decision. A full, committed, ships burned, no turning back decision about the life you are going to create. The only question is, are you ready to make it? Bob Proctor taught something that surprises many people. The ability to receive is not automatic. Most people, despite all their desire for abundance, have a deep and unconscious resistance to actually receiving it. They have been so conditioned by scarcity that when real prosperity begins to arrive, they find ways, often invisible to themselves, to deflect, minimize, or sabotage it. This resistance often shows up as self-worth. The limiting belief that prosperity is for other people. That you have not suffered enough, worked hard enough, or proven yourself sufficiently to deserve a life of genuine abundance. Bob would challenge this belief at its root. Abundance is not earned by suffering. It is received through alignment. The universe, Bob taught, is infinitely abundant. There is no shortage of money, opportunity, creativity, or love at the level of the infinite. Scarcity is a story that exists only in the human mind, and specifically in paradigms built by generations of fear-based thinking. To receive abundance, you must first stop agreeing with the story of scarcity. Gratitude is one of the most powerful receiving practices Bob ever taught. Not gratitude as an emotional performance, but as a genuine recognition of the abundance already present in your life. The person who is genuinely grateful for what they have creates an inner environment that is hospitable to more. Gratitude opens the channel. Giving is the other side of the receiving equation. Bob was deeply influenced by the principle that giving and receiving are two expressions of the same flow, and that a person who hoards, clings, and grasps is actually blocking the very current they are trying to access. Giving generously, from a mindset of abundance rather than sacrifice, expands your capacity to receive. Bob also taught the practice of increasing your financial thermostat, gradually expanding what you consider a normal and expected level of income. Many people are unconsciously programmed to maintain a specific income level. Anytime they exceed it, they find ways to spend, lose, or give away the excess until they return to their comfort zone. Recognizing and deliberately raising this thermostat is essential to sustaining growth. The practice of tithing, giving 10% of what you receive to a source of spiritual nourishment, was something Bob practiced personally and taught consistently. He believed it was not a religious obligation but a prosperity law. The person who gives from their first fruits demonstrates a trust in abundance that the universe mirrors back multiplied. Allow yourself to want more. This sounds simple, but it is genuinely difficult for people conditioned by guilt around desire. Bob taught that wanting is not greed. Wanting, when properly channeled through creative vision and committed action, is the engine of all human progress. Your desire for more is legitimate. Honor it. Celebrate every evidence of abundance in your life, no matter how small. Every unexpected gift. Every moment of ease. Every dollar that arrives in an unexpected way. Celebration sends a signal, an emotional acknowledgement that abundance is welcome here, that it is safe to arrive, and that more of it is expected. The mental code of abundance is complete when you move from wanting to being. When prosperity is no longer something you are chasing, but something you are expressing, through your thoughts, your decisions, your generosity, and your expectancy. This is what Bob Proctor modeled every day of his extraordinary life. And it is available to you, starting now. Bob Proctor did not teach these principles from an armchair. He taught them as a man who had lived them, who had crossed the desert of failure and limitation and found, on the other side, a world of possibility so vast and so real that he spent the rest of his long life doing everything in his power to bring others with him. He understood that the greatest gift you can give another human being is not money, or sympathy, or even love in the conventional sense. It is the knowledge that they are capable of more than they have ever been told to believe. That is the gift he gave to millions. And in this video, he has given it to you. The mental code of abundance is not complicated, but it is demanding. It demands that you look honestly at the paradigms running your life. It demands that you take full responsibility for the vibration you are broadcasting. It demands that you set goals that frighten you, use your imagination with discipline and intention, make real decisions and commit to them completely, and open yourself to receiving a level of prosperity that may feel unearned simply because you have never held it before. None of this is easy. But all of it is possible. Bob proved that. And so have the thousands of people who sat in his seminars, applied his teachings, and watched their lives transform in ways they once considered impossible. If this video moved something in you, if even one idea landed differently today than it ever has before, then honor that feeling. Do not let it become just another moment of inspiration that fades by tomorrow morning. Write down your C goal. Read it today. Read it tomorrow. Begin the practice of deliberately impressing your subconscious mind with the life you are choosing to create. Because as Bob Proctor said, and as the universe has always confirmed, you were born rich. It is time to start living that way.